Free cartel. Convicted entertainer's lawyer presents case for his release. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on air and online at onespotmedia.com. I'm Archibald Gordon.
And I'm Doreen Samuels. Also this evening, scandalous. New revelations in Nestle controversy show management bypassing chief engineer in critical decisions.
I want my job back. The case of a King Alarm security who was recently sacked.
Traumatized. The story of police officers pinned down for hours in raging gun battle on Sunday.
Dry spell woes. How residents in St. Elizabeth are coping.
And in business news, gas prices drop.
There's also sports post commentary and weather in the primetime package. But before the break, the feedback question.
Do you find media interviews given by attorneys during a court case helpful? Give your reasons for your answer.
Share comments online, facebook.com/television Jamaica and tweet at Television Jam.
Stay with us. Primetime News returns after this break.
Welcome back to Primetime News.
Special welcome to folks on onespotmedia.com.
Up first this evening, lawyers for dancehall entertainer Vybz Kartel today urged the Court of Appeal to free him, saying he was not in Havendale, St. Andrew at the time when Clive Lizard Williams is said to have been killed.
For a third day, lawyers for the appellants continued their attempts to show weaknesses in the 2014 trial which led to Kartel's conviction. TVJ's Vashon Brown was in court today and now joins us live. Vashon?
Thank you so much, Archie and Doreen. Now, Kartel is appealing the life sentence imposed on him in 2014 for the murder of Clive Lizard Williams. Sean Campbell, Andre St. John and Kahira Jones were also convicted for the murder. There were several issues raised today by the lawyers representing the appellants, particularly by the lawyer representing Vybz Kartel. Issues like whether there should be a retrial and where was Kartel when Clive Lizard Williams was killed. Vybz Kartel's lawyer Valerie Nita Robertson today wrapped up her submissions before the Court of Appeal. During the trial in 2014, it was argued that the prosecution's key witness, Chow, went to Palmer's house on the night Lizard was killed. It was further argued that when Chow arrived at the premises at Swallowfield Avenue in St. Andrew, Kartel's dog went after him and Kartel had to intervene and was bitten by his own dog. Chow said he assisted Kartel to Andrews Memorial Hospital where he was treated. Today, Mrs. Nita Robertson told the court that hospital records, cell site evidence, and Chow's timeline are very different. In court in 2014, the trial judge asked the prosecution's main witness, "At about what time you got to the hospital?" The witness responds, "About 9 p.m., about that time." The judge then asked, "And about how long you stayed there?" The witness responded, "About half an hour, 20 minutes. It's alleged that Clive Lizard Williams was killed around 8 p.m. on August 16, 2011. Mrs. Nita Robertson told the court that there is a discrepancy.
The evidence of the police officer is that the cell site demonstrated that Mr. Palmer was at Havendale at 7:52. But the hospital records show that he was at Andrews Memorial Hospital at 7:48. So he could not be. The time span is too narrow for him to have been literally in these two places at one time.
She argued that it calls into question a number of things like the credibility of the prosecution's main witness, as well as the veracity of cell tower information that was used during Kartel's murder trial. The issue of a retrial also came up today. Kartel's lawyer urged the court to quash the conviction and not to order a new trial. She pointed to what she called the overwhelming number of deficiencies raised about the trial, like prosecutorial misconduct, breaches of the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedom, inclusion of inadmissible evidence, and a rush to justice.
Oh, we are saying that it's so bad. It's so bad that you ought not to give the prosecution an opportunity to fix those things that have gone bad already.
Kartel's lawyers also took issue with police statements and media reports during his murder trial and how the matter was dealt with by the trial judge. In February 2014, defense lawyers had raised concerns about a statement released by the police's communications unit, which was carried by the media, referring to the attempted bombing of a policeman's house. That release said that the policeman is a witness in a high-profile case now before the courts. Mrs. Nita Robertson said because this information was given to the media by senior police and given their position in society was likely to have far-reaching prejudicial effect than an article written by someone outside of the police force. She said the trial judge dealt with the issue of adverse publicity in a very flippant way. Now, tomorrow we will hear more submissions from lawyers for the appellants. It's expected that the prosecution will respond to the arguments on Friday. Now, there was another issue that did not escape the attention of lawyers in the cartel appeal. A letter in today's Gleaner written by former Court of Appeal President Seymour Panton. Mr. Panton said some lawyers or some attorneys at law have been misguidedly giving interviews and making speeches on radio and television and in the press in respect of the cases that are actually in progress before the courts of the land. He expressed surprise that the General Legal Counsel and the various bar associations have chosen to be asleep while the practice continues. Now, I should point out that Mr. Panton did not name any specific case. Mrs. Nita Robertson said she saw the article.
And I do believe that we are in different times. And I respect his lordship, but it's very difficult to gag me.
Thank you, ma'am.
If it were a jury trial, I would understand, because the lay person will be easily influenced. But this is a bench of judges who are not going to listen to anything that we say. They have listened to our arguments, and it's the same arguments I'm producing to you. Nothing different, nothing added.
The General Legal Counsel itself issued a release on the matter, saying the practice is punishable as a contempt of court and can be dealt with appropriately by the court. Archie and Doreen, back to you.
Thank you, Vashan. No more damning revelations this evening about the operations of Nesol National Energy Solutions Limited, as the company's management bypassed the chief engineer in a number of critical decisions.
Nesol was again thrust into the spotlight as Parliament's Public Administration Appropriations Committee, PAAC, continued to probe matters at the state-run entity. TVJ's Andrea Chisholm reports.
Limited Nesol was brought in the spotlight since Lawrence Pommels, the company's operations engineer, was arrested and charged for money laundering. Mr. Pommels was acting as chief engineer for this man, Anthony Brown, when he went on leave in May 2017. But when Mr. Brown returned to work in November 2017, there were changes. He signed no checks.
When you returned from your vacation leave, did you continue to sign as a signing officer or not?
No. So Mr. Pommels continued to sign and you did not sign?
That is my understanding.
And that's not all. Mr. Brown was asked about installation of solar systems under the Community Access Point CAP program, which was funded by the Universal Service Fund.
It seems that I was not informed that Mr. Pommel was appointed as the officer with the direct responsibility and oversight, supervision and monitoring of all engineering projects, system designs, modification of pole line extension, house wiring and operational maintenance engineering related to the SIL project.
You were not advised of that, you're saying?
No, sir. You were not? I was not advised.
The chief engineer indicated that when Lawrence Pommels was promoted in January 2017 to operating engineer, he thought Mr. Pommel reported to him, only to be advised that Mr. Pommel reported directly to the managing director, Carolyn Warren, who has recently received public attention due to a drug conviction decades ago.
So you are saying, in effect, you were circumvented?
Definitely.
So, what's the value of work done by Mr. Brown since he returned from vacation in November up until now?
My estimate of expenditure is somewhere in the region of $5 million. For the job that I supervise.
So this $14 million that was spent in Crooked River and Dover land settlement, you didn't work on those then?
Not at all.
You never thought it unfit or questionable that you were being undermined?
Yes, I do remember, but it's uncomfortable and I live with it.
Andrea Chisholm, TVJ News.
In the meantime, PAAC Chairman Dr. Wickham McNeil described as curious the sudden change of leadership at 4 state entities which were the responsibility of former Energy Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley. The entities are Petrojam, eGov, the Universal Service Fund and Nesol. At Petrojam, former General Manager Floyd Grinley took up the post in November 2016 after the contract of Howard Mollison was terminated. During that period, Winston Watson returned from his secondment at the Petroleum Corporation of Jamaica.
After that long duration of secondment to PCJ, that secondment was terminated, and in so doing terminated the incumbent to facilitate your return.
Well, that's the agreement.
So you were returned to Petrojam, to PCJ, and a recruitment now was in train.
No, but I went back on a new secondment.
And a secondment, yeah. 3 months after.
Just about.
Right.
Oh.
The case involving Mr. Mollison is now at the Industrial Disputes Tribunal, and he's claiming unfair dismissal. Meanwhile, at eGov, Maurice Barnes replaced Herman Athias as Chief Executive Officer in 2016. That case is now at the Labour Ministry, with Mr. Athias claiming he was unfairly dismissed. And at the Universal Service Fund, Camille Buchanan joined in 2016, taking over from Hugh Cross. Mr. Cross also challenged his dismissal. He reportedly withdrew his claim following a conciliatory meeting at the Ministry of Labour. Acting Permanent Secretary in the Technology Ministry, Joaquin Murray, said the boards of the respective entities made the decision to terminate the contracts.
In the meantime, 5 private sector groups have written to Prime Minister Andrew Holness calling for the investigations into the issues affecting Petrojam to be completed within the next 3 months and the subsequent reports made public. The call comes from the Jamaica Umbrella Group of Churches, National Integrity Action, the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, and the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce. In a joint statement, the groups say they met on Monday to discuss the issues of nepotism, cronyism, favoritism, and other evils that have long scarred governance of public bodies and contributed to a waste of taxpayers' money. They say they want the Prime Minister to immediately exclude the former Energy Minister, Dr. Andrew Wheatley, from all matters relating to Petrojam. They also want the terms of reference, composition, and deliverables of the Strategic Committee to review Petrojam's operations, which is to be chaired by Christopher Zaka, to be disclosed publicly. It noted that no corrective measures were taken based on reports and recommendations in the past from oversight bodies, particularly in relation to Petrojam.
A top story today, lawyer leading cartel's appeal against his conviction tells court to free the entertainer as it presents its case, saying the 2014 trial had several discrepancies. Still to come, traumatized, the story of police officers who were pinned down for hours in raging gun battle on Sunday. And in the business day, gas prices go lower. We'll tell you by how much. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Primetime News. Exclusive footage this evening of the building where police were trapped for hours following a shootout with men armed with high-powered weapons. The incident happened in East Kingston on Sunday. As TVJ's Kirk Wright reports, the officers were left traumatized and are receiving counseling.
On the police guard on Tuesday, we went to see the building in which the cops from the Kingston Eastern Police Division were pinned down by gunmen on Sunday. For more than 3 hours on the weekend, this 8 by 10 feet unfinished structure was the sole shield for 6 policemen who came under fire from gunmen on Oliver Road in East Kingston. The more than 40 bullet holes we counted on the outside of the building alone tell the dreadful tale. The building, perched on the hill, gave the gunmen an advantage. Now, 7 bullet holes in this area alone, and this is just a few of the many bullet holes in this building where 6 police officers took cover when gunmen fired at them for hours. They took cover right here. One policeman was here trying to shield off the gunman, and this is where a bullet actually flew over his head. Now this should give the public an understanding of the trauma the policemen faced while they were here and gunmen hailed bullets at them. Our police sources say the gunmen were close enough to the trapped policemen in the building to have been taunting them that they were all trapped and were all going to die. We were showed some of the strategic points the gunmen used while shooting their high-powered weapons at the police, including the rooftops in nearby yards. The police called for backup. Their colleagues from Mobile Reserve responded but had trouble getting to them. All 6 police officers were rescued with minor injuries. The police say they picked up hundreds of spent shells after. The 6 policemen had gone to Oliver Road after receiving intelligence that men from Jarrett Lane were planning to attack persons from Oliver Road who were returning from a funeral. The police say the situation was so tense, Indicom investigators had to be escorted into the area the following day. Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
In a primetime news follow-up now, another King Alarm guard has been fired for misconduct in the recent incident involving a licensed firearm holder at Braemar Estate in St. Andrew. But as it turns out, the guard is seeking to overturn the decision. TVJ's Anthony Lugg reports.
At a press conference last Thursday, King Alarm boss John Azar outlined that disciplinary actions were taken against the 3 guards found guilty of offense during the incident at the Braemar Estate in St. Andrew. However, only 2 of the 3 were found guilty. The guard seen slapping the licensed firearm holder while he was being subdued retained an attorney who requested more time to review the evidence. On Wednesday, Mr. Azar provided an update.
So his disciplinary hearing was held last week Thursday, and ultimately our disciplinary panel found that his conduct was not in keeping with our high standards and our best practices, and his employment was terminated.
The guard has since filed an appeal. That hearing is expected to take place at a later date, which is yet to be set. The incident, which was shared widely on social media, left persons asking why King Alarm waited so long to take action.
In answer to people who are saying why wasn't action taken quicker, I'll just repeat to say that we don't write the labor codes or the laws, but we have to abide by them. And it may be a good opportunity for me to encourage the powers that be at the PSOJ or the Chamber of Commerce to probably look into it. In certain instances, that Labor Code 2010 amendment can be onerous to employers and in some cases expose them to unnecessary liability.
So, did social media influence the company's decision?
That had no bearing at all on what we did. And I'll give you one quick example. There's an incident a couple months ago at a popular Kingston gym where we apprehended some persons who had just been guilty of a shooting, and we came in for a lot of accolades from it. But in the footage that was aired, we saw something that when somebody was subdued on the ground, there was an action by one of our officers which did not keep with our standards. So while there's absolutely no outcry in that instance, we took the necessary internal action against the officer involved because our principles are not swayed by the temperature of social media.
Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
As we continue our look at the dry spell across the country, move now to St. Elizabeth. TVJ's Anthony Lugg visited the parish and spoke with farmers about the impact of the dry spell on their crops.
The devastating effects of the prolonged dry spell in full display all across the parish of St. Elizabeth. Empty water tanks, withered crops and thirsty livestock. Little rain accompanied by heat waves are things people living in the parish are familiar with, particularly farmers.
As you see it, the drought really rough right now.
I am hoping that rain will come soon, because if it doesn't, I'm going to be suffering.
So, how exactly is the dry spell affecting crops? Rudolph Ebanks plants sweet potatoes in Malvern.
If rain was coming, it would be bigger than how it is, you know. So the drought really keep it down.
Others are simply discarded, not fit for consumption. Over in the Chelsea community, Rich Roy Bent has his own set of challenges on his broccoli farm.
The ants are sucking against the root. If you realize here, you see the ants sucking against the root. If it was getting water, that would not have been the case. And then others would have basically dried up.
Despite the prolonged dry spell affecting several areas in the parish and farmers desperately calling for rain, Merton Bent's farm in Top Hill is flourishing.
I don't know how the other people really do their own, but I wet my field every other day.
People who can't afford the drip irrigation or the water, it will be a tremendous trouble to them.
Which takes us to the issue of getting water.
Sometimes we have to transport water from a parish tank not so far from here, but At this time, because of the adverse weather conditions, the tank is getting low.
For full the tank where you have, how much that normally costs you on a regular?
You can't fully. You just buy a load of water.
How much is that?
6,000. If you get it from Rapid, you get it for 6,500. But I tell you something about Rapid now. If you add a load of water from Rapid now, you won't get that until 2 weeks' time. So you have to buy it from the private man. A load of water is for $14,000–15,000.
But as we journeyed through the parish, what we saw next was breathtaking. Rain in Nain. So much that vehicle had to use caution. It stretched as far as Santa Cruz. Now after several months of drought, and today a downpour which lasted a little over an hour, residents are now optimistic that things may be looking up.
I have a big black drum with the gutter set inside. Yes, so when we catch water, I'm glad for it, we don't have to buy it now again.
Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
Despite murders being recorded in some parishes across the island for the month of June, one parish is boasting of no murders at all. A big achievement for head of the St. Anne Police, Senior Superintendent Michael Smith, who was quick to point out that the new strategy they employed has been working. TVJ's Shamela Mitchell reports.
The recent talks surrounding crime in Jamaica have been focused on reduced homicide rates in areas under special attention from the security forces like St. James and parts of St. Catherine. But at least one parish, St. Anne, under no state of emergency or zone of special operations, is recording success in containing murders.
For the month of June, St. Anne did not record a murder.
Head of the St. Anne Police, Senior Superintendent Michael Smith, speaking to councillors at the St. Anne Municipal Corporation's recent monthly meeting. SSP Smith says areas where the new strategies have been a success are Brownstone, Alexandria and Watown.
Percentage-wise, we are at 39%, less than last year, 13 less murders than last year.
No murders doesn't mean everything is all right. SSP Smith says shootings are up. He presented figures which show 17 shootings were recorded between January and July. During the same period a year ago, the parish recorded 13 shootings.
There are break-ins by 2, shootings by 4. All other categories of crime are down, and we are enjoying a 33% reduction in comparison to last year. But significantly, for this year, we are running at a 51% figure in comparison to our figure last year.
SSP Smith is calling for councillors to help the police keep crime under control.
It is showing significant signs that between now and December, St. Anne will be the #1 parish as it relates to safety and security. We have committed ourselves to that as law enforcement officers, and we are working assiduously to achieve those objectives and ideals.
Shamela Mitchell, TVJ News.
Persons who have non-communicable diseases should take extra caution during the summer as they are at risk for getting a stroke. Consultant neurosurgeon Dr. Roger Hunter says this is a time of the year when there's usually an increase. TVJ's Shamela Mitchell reports.
Health Report is brought to you by
Nestle Lactogen 3, digestive comfort that shows.
Stroke is one of the leading causes of deaths in Jamaica. As a result, if you have certain medical conditions such as hypertension or diabetes, you may want to take extra caution, especially during the summer.
You find that a change in the weather, an increase in the temperature can lead to rupturing of blood vessels, and it's something that's well described. When you have a sudden change in the weather condition, certainly you see it around the summer times, but it's also documented around the winter times when you go into the colder climates. There's something about a significant change in the temperature and atmospheric pressure that can result in rupturing of blood vessels in the head.
Knowing the signs and symptoms are critical. Dr. Hunter says if someone is having signs of a stroke, he or she needs to be taken to the doctor immediately to avoid complications or even the person's demise.
First of all, patients may have twisting of the face. One side of the face looks drooled or droopy. The patient may have a problem with speech, right? So they become slurred in their speech. They may also become weak in one arm, one side, or one leg. That usually indicates that a patient may be having a stroke.
Dr. Hunter says individuals who have these non-communicable diseases should not drink too much, as it could lead to a stroke.
During the summer times, we tend to go into parties and perhaps drink alcohol, which very often does not agree with a lot of the blood pressure medication or diabetic medication. So it's very important for people to be disciplined and not to participate in excesses.
With your health report, I'm Shamela Mitchell wishing you good health. Health Report is brought to you by
Nestle Lactogen 3, digestive comfort that shows.
A reminder that our current affairs program, All Angles, is at 8:30 this evening, and Dion Jackson Miller is here with a preview. Dion?
Thank you so very much, Doreen. Well, last week, Philip Paulwell called for the head of a government agency to be dismissed because of information that some years ago she had had a conviction on drug charges. Turned out that conviction was some 20 years ago. Does that matter? Should it matter? There are certain positions from which you should be barred depending on the type of conviction. We're going to be talking about all those issues coming up on All Angles later this evening, right after primetime news at 8:30. Right now, it's back to you.
Thank you, Dion. And we now go to Archibald Gordon at the Smart Board for comments from those on social media. Archie?
Thank you, Doreen. Here's our question this evening. We're asking, do you find media interviews given by attorneys during a court case helpful? And we're asking persons to give reasons for their answer. Here's the first. No, attorneys shouldn't be given media interviews about investigations or evidence once the matter is before the court. Second comment, no, that's totally rubbish because the case is already in the law's hands. It's either the crime is done or not. Third comment, yes, it helps because the public cannot fit in court, so the attorney gives the public a brief of what's happening and what other steps are going to be taken. And our final comment for this section is, I don't think it's necessary for lawyers to provide information about the case because it can be at a disadvantage or an advantage both for the Crown or the accused. Keep your comments coming on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/televisionjamaica, and your tweet to @televisionjam. Business news and news from overseas after the break.
Health Report is brought to you by
Nestle Lactogen 3, digestive comfort that shows.